we had to work as an organization and say, hey, there's over 60 million Americans who potentially are going to go weeks or months without getting an invoice paid unless you do something.
Slowly but surely, the infrastructure is being rebuilt to now include independent business owners.
We also are doing that work on the ground, approaching legislators, trying to make the news to help inform people about what's happening and what can be done to improve the lives of independent business owners.
The current infrastructure that has been created in society is not meant for independent business owners.
At the end of the day, it's about evening out the playing field so that freelancers feel armed and feel protected.
84% of independent business owners think that there should be more government resources and financial assistance to better support them. It's clear that the current infrastructure that we have makes it difficult for us to not only build, but also protect our business. So now more than ever, it is vital that we come together to advocate for policies that support the rights of independent business owners. So how exactly can we get started? How can we equip ourselves to better protect our business? Well, that is where Rafael Espinal comes in, and he is the president of the Freelancers Union, which is a nonprofit that serves as a support system for independents through advocacy, education, and services. Rafael will be sharing with us how we can become fierce advocates for our business. And this conversation is just the beginning, because we will be partnering with the Freelancers Union, hosting a meetup at the South by Southwest event next year. And we are so excited to join forces with them to help secure a better future for independent business owners. Now let's get into the episode. The Independent Business Podcast is brought to you by HoneyBook, the all-in-one platform for anyone with clients. Book clients, manage projects, and get paid faster, all with HoneyBook. You can use the code podcast to get 20% off of your brand new account and let business flow your way. Hello, Rafael. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. I'm really excited for this discussion because just even kicking it off here, 84% of independent business owners feel that the government does not provide enough financial resources or assistance to supporting them. So I've been looking forward to this episode and just hearing more of your work with the Freelancers Union and just the impact that you guys are making in our community here for every single independent business owners to make some of these resources available. So I'm really, really excited to have you here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we're just going to hop in right away. So can you just share with us your journey and how did you get involved with the Freelancers Union and essentially become their executive director?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long journey, but it all started with me being born and raised and growing up in Brooklyn. Lived here my entire life. And I growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a creative. I wanted to be a filmmaker. That was the big dream. And there was also an understanding that with that, most likely you'd be doing independent work. So as I went through high school and college, with that goal in mind, the Freelancers Union was actually founded in Brooklyn, and they were really working behind the scenes through those years to build the organization. And I remember riding the New York City subway and seeing their posters plastered everywhere. They had this big sign that said, "Freelancers Union, Independents Unite. Anyone who works in TV, graphic design, or just works independently in general, come to our organization and get access to all these benefits, community, and more." And I remember thinking how important that was, especially for folks who worked independently, because I think we all can agree that independent work is siloed work, right? Everyone's working independently, it's very fractured. You have to kind of create the opportunities to make connectivity. So I thought it was great that there was an organization doing this work. And when I graduated out of college, life took me a different path. I got involved in politics, and I ran for office at the age of 26, and I became a New York State Assembly member. But in my time in government, everything kind of came full circle because the union requested a meeting with my office to talk about a bill they were working on to expand the rights of independent workers when it comes to non-payment. And I happened to have been the legislator that they approached with this bill language, and we worked together to actually pass the nation's first law called the Freelance Isn't Free Act in the city of New York that granted independent workers the right to a contract and the right to a net pay of 30 days.
Yes, and I'm excited to talk about that. And I think that is just so amazing. Just first of all, the amount of work that you've done and from where you started to where you are now. And it's kind of interesting of just even just little moments in our own journeys where you saw a sign and you're like, okay, this is what I need. And then how just things to transpire to where you are now. It's such an amazing journey. And so in your time with the Freelancers Union, what do you think are the major challenges that are affecting independent business owners currently?
Yeah, we constantly put out a survey to our members. We have a membership of about 500,000 people across the country in all 50 states. The majority, of course, are in New York City and in California and in states like Texas, and the growing population also in Illinois. And what we constantly hear from them is that, number one, health insurance is too expensive, and it's the biggest hurdle for a current freelancer and for anyone thinking of going into freelance. Right? We've been sold our entire lives this idea that we need health insurance and you need a 9 to 5 job in order to get good quality health care that is paid for and that you don't have to worry about. And unfortunately, that becomes the biggest barrier for a lot of folks. And it's the biggest I think expense that hurts their bottom line when it comes to just taking care of themselves and providing for their families. So that is why the organization has put a lot of focus and energy in focusing on that work. I think one of the major accomplishments that the organization was able to do was create its own health insurance company at some point called the freelance insurance company, and freelancers were able to get health insurance at half the cost than if they went out on their own and bought it anywhere else. Unfortunately, given the regulations and with the Affordable Care Act and the rules that came around that, it no longer allowed us to provide that service. But we try to think of new novel ways of skirting around those regulations and figuring out on how we can create strong partnerships to get freelancers the best deals. For example, just recently we launched a partnership with this telehealth company called Galileo, and you're able to get 24/7 access to a doctor on your phone, discounted prescriptions, discounted vision and dental. And that is only available if you're a member of the Freelancers Union, because if you went out and tried to buy it on your own through Galileo, you would only get half the services and you're probably paying more of a cost. So that is what we do in the background, right? It's like, how do we build these strong partnerships that at the end of the day is going to benefit the worker?
Absolutely. I think, again, it just goes to talk about how the current infrastructure that has been created in society is not meant for independent business owners. I think of myself when I first started my business. I mean, when you're, especially as a solopreneur, that is the last thing on your mind is health insurance. You're just trying to get clients, show up on, with your marketing, bookkeeping, all of these different hats that you have to wear. And so then when you have to finally get health insurance and you finally make it a priority, just to be able to attain it is so difficult. And I'm one of the 62% of independent business owners who feel that the government also does not make it easy to attain the limited resources that are already available to us. And so I love that what you guys are doing is, I think it just reminds me, I think the heart of the Freelancers Union, right? It's freelancers being scrappy of like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to be innovative in any way that we can to be able to provide these resources to independent business owners. And I love that. And so another question that I want to ask too is, what do you think the biggest challenge is with independent business owners getting paid? Because I loved that you guys had your freelancers toolkit. And I think I just really wanted to paint this picture of just how much it really affects business owners when like potential clients, or I mean, just clients in general, miss payments. And so this is what I loved so much about what you guys shared. I think it was like 44%, if they don't get paid, end up having to use credit cards. Some people end up having to borrow money from family and friends. Some people, 7%, end up having to get government assistance. So, it's so key being able to protect yourself and protect your business. And so I want to ask again, why do you feel like, what are some of the challenges that are really impacting independent business owners from being paid?
Yeah, I mean, I will start off by saying that, the latest numbers show that there are over 60 million Americans who are independent workers, independent business owners. And that just creates an opportunity for 60 million Americans to be in a situation in which they won't have enough money to pay their rents or pay their other utilities costs, and kind of further driving them into debt for reasons you mentioned, right? Having to tap into your credit card, having to get a small business loan to keep you afloat. So we worked around this issue because we knew that given how fractured the workforce is and how everyone operates in silos, it just creates more opportunities for larger companies and for clients to be able to exploit you, to be able to feel like they don't have to pay you on time because there aren't these regulations in place that are going to penalize them enough to hold them accountable. So it really comes down to a few things, right? One, you're likely working with a company that has very complex internal finance systems and tools in place that doesn't allow them to be able to process your invoices or lose your email or be able to get you paid on time, right? But then you also have the clients who don't have, who also don't feel the need to be able to pay you on time for a host of other reasons. But this is why the law was so important. It's like, how do we create a basic standard across the board to ensure that every independent business owner to every client relationship, that there's a standard of getting paid within 30 days, and there's a standard to having a contract in place. And that's what the law did in New York City. And since then, we've been working to get this law proliferated across the country. And that has been our focus over the past few years.
Yeah, and the impact due to the Freelancers Isn't Free Act is amazing. I mean, I read a report since in the past 5 years, since it's gone into effect, 3,000 claims have been filed by independent business owners, and you guys have been able to recover $2.9 million for businesses, which is just absolutely fantastic. And so I wanted to ask you, what was that process like getting this bill passed? What did that whole journey look like?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the reason that we see a lack of protection and benefits for the freelance workforce is because there has been there isn't really a unified voice advocating for this workforce, right? The traditional employee has a traditional union that has been organizing them for 100 years, right? And even larger businesses have these big lobbying firms who are out in the halls of government, fighting for their causes. Because freelance workers have lacked that space of community and solidarity for a long time, it's really allowed for government not to keep up with the rapid changes that has been happening within the independent business workforce, right? So what really started pushing things over the edge was when the Freelancers Union began working with their members and working with other independent business owners to really think about, well, what are the needs of the community, and how do we shape legislation that's going to benefit them? And non-payment was that big issue. And they worked with labor lawyers and other labor unions to get language to figure out, how do we craft a bill that's going to ensure you get paid on time, and if you don't get paid on time, that there's a mechanism in place in which that client is going to get fined by the city or the state, and if they don't pay after getting fined, that you're able to go to small claims court as you normally would. But now that when you do go to small claims court, you actually have a letter acknowledging from the city or the state that you have gone through this whole process trying to get paid, and the client has not been responsive. So when you go into court and are in front of a judge, you already have all of this information that's going to guarantee the judge side in your favor. And on top of that, if you do have to go through the entire process, now the client's going to have to owe you double damages. So that $2,000 invoice becomes a $4,000 invoice to that client. And they're also responsible for any attorney fees you incurred through the process. So it was really designed to protect the freelancer, but also make clear to the client that this is going to be a long and expensive process for them, and the easiest thing and the best thing they can do is ensure you get paid on time for the work you've completed.
Yes, and I think that is just so key. And I love that you guys have this resource, because as independent business owners, right, we naturally don't think that. We always think that businesses are willing to pay. We always go into situations hoping for the best, as we should, but sometimes that just doesn't happen. And then you don't know you need something until you need it. And so I think that's just so amazing that you guys have that in place. And you guys are working hard right now to get this expanded into other cities. So what does that look like as well? With that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the pandemic has really created an opportunity to open the eyes of our society and legislators about the need to create protections for all workers. I think we can all just look back and think about how concerned we all were when the government was announcing programs that would support brick and mortar store or businesses, when they were announcing programs to ensure that the traditional worker had a paycheck every single week if they were laid off of their jobs. We had to work as an organization to bring these issues to the federal government and say, hey, there's over 60 million Americans who potentially are going to go without, are going to go weeks or months without a paycheck or without getting an invoice paid unless you do something. So I guess I use that as an example because that really created a conversation on how do we start thinking about the future of work. How are we going to prepare for for a workforce that for over a century has gone without these basic protections and resources. So now when we approach legislators in California, in Illinois, in Texas, they're more keen and more attuned to what's happening. And because we have cities like New York City and now the city of LA and now the city of Seattle who have implemented these laws, it makes it a lot easier to start these conversations. And we're seeing this law coming into place in across the country. The cities I just mentioned, Seattle, the city of LA. Just as of last month, the state of Illinois signed a state freelancers and free bill into place. This week in the state of New York, our governor is going to sign a statewide bill into place, and we also have a bill in Austin. But ultimately, the idea is how do we get enough states and cities agreeing that this is a basic right that all independent business owners and freelancers need, so that we can go to the federal level and try to get a national bill passed that will cover freelancers across the entire country.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And that is just so powerful to see all of the work that you guys are doing. And you're right, like the pandemic, millions of people started their own business due to the pandemic. And there are more people that lie ahead in the journey who are going to start their business. And so again, this is just so key in making sure that people are getting paid, that their businesses are protected, and that they're still able to support themselves, their teams, their families. And so I absolutely love it. It's just really inspiring, and it makes me excited about the future of entrepreneurship. And I think it just makes it clear, especially to the government, that small businesses are here to stay. We've always been here. And to finally get that recognition, I think is so important, to where slowly but surely the infrastructure is being rebuilt to now include independent business owners, which I think is it's amazing. And I'm just so excited to hear more about the work that you guys are doing. And I think, again, it just leads to the importance of legislative advocacy. I think as business owners, many of us wonder, how can we get involved? What can I do? I'm just one person. And so how can independent business owners be more involved and be more aware of what's happening in our government?
Yeah, well, the first thing you can do is join the Freelancers Union, freelancersunion.org. It is free to be part of our community. And what that opens up for you is all of the information and resources that our team curates to ensure that you're armed with everything you need to ensure that your business and your career is a successful one. But two, we also are doing that work on the ground, approaching legislators, trying to make the news to help inform people about what's happening and what can be done to improve the lives of independent business owners. So, we have a weekly newsletter that goes out with all this useful information. So I encourage everyone to join. And that is the easiest step you can take. And from there, we do have monthly meetup groups around the country in which you're able to connect with other like-minded independent business owners and potentially help you create your own community locally as well.
Absolutely. And then another thing that I want to add to that as well, because as independent, I think too, as independent business owners, there's power in voting, right? Like I think that was highlighted heavily, obviously in 2020, but just realizing too that it's so important to know what's going on in your local government. I know for my personal experience, just with voting in general, I had all of these I always create a list of values, right? And small business, like how government officials are supporting small businesses, was not on that list for me every time I voted. Now it's different for me this year. It is. And also too, from a local perspective, researching and getting to know the people in your local government, your local districts who are able to, who are fighting the fight for small business owners to help you make the best decision for you and your family as you're voting. That's something too that I've just learned in terms of like at least getting started with advocacy that I have found super helpful. And I'm really excited for the Freelancers Union because I will definitely be joining. Because again, I think these things are so key. Sorry, go on.
No. I mean, as a former legislator that was voted into office by constituency, I mean, my agenda was sculpted by the people that I represented, right? So if you're in the office of your local council member or your local state senator and you're expressing your concerns and your needs and what you believe this legislator could be doing to better your life, you'll have someone that could potentially be an ally and help craft and push those laws that are important to you. So absolutely, voting is the number one thing you definitely can do. And I would say that's probably the easiest thing you can do before joining the union.
Yeah, no, there's so many. But the thing is that I love is that it's not that difficult, right? I think, again, we're like, how can I get involved? There's so many different things that I just don't know. And it's like, number one, there's power in knowledge. Like, knowledge is power. Literally, there's power in your vote, and joining places like the Freelancers Union to really help guide you and just give you that education that you need to make the best decisions for you. And so I absolutely love that. And so another question that I have is, how can also business owners improve to protect themselves? I mean, I learned in your toolkit that I think like 28% of independent business owners only like have written contracts, which I was so surprised by that, because when I first started my own business, that was something that was drilled into me. But then I realized I'm like, not everybody has, all of our experiences are so different of how we get started. So how can we better protect ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of word of mouth contracts, right? The people that fail to write down the terms of the work, the terms of pay, and that really opens you up to allow for a client to take advantage of you, right, and exploit you. So a written contract is the number one thing you can do in order to ensure that you get paid, and if you don't get paid, that you can at least go through the process of going to small claims court and having your case being heard by a judge and potentially getting you the money that for the work that you've completed. So we encourage everyone, get a contract on our website. I think HoneyBook as well provides this. It's a contract template, and clearly scope out the work, but also milestones in which you agree on to get paid, to ensure that at least as you go on to the journey of completing this work, that you're getting money through the door and not waiting until the end of a project, which will make it more likely that you'd have to wait more than 30 days to collect on that check or not get paid at all. So have that front end deposit, have those milestones in between where you'll get paid for the work you completed to those points. And then I think at the end of the day, those two things will give you that protection. And if you're working with a client that denies you the right to a contract, I think you should think twice about working with that client.
Yes, I was just about to ask you, because I've had, I have worked with corporations as a business owner, and some of them, they send you, which that's why I'm curious about to know your thoughts on this, is they will send you their contract to sign, where they may not want you to send your own. And so, which I've noticed some corporations do that, some don't. And so if you're a business owner that finds yourself in that type of situation, what advice would you have of how to advocate for yourself in that?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, that contract that you receive from that larger corporation is not written in stone. I think that you have the right to come back to them with your own revisions and your own concerns of how you think the contract should be renegotiated. So I would go down that route first. But again, the reality is that there isn't much recourse for a freelancer if a client does not want to budge on how their contract is structured, right? Which is why laws like the Freelancers in Free Act were created to ensure that freelancers have more bargaining power when they're working with a client, especially larger corporations that have all the tools and resources to be able to push back against you as a solopreneur. So I think we can all agree that there are larger clients and corporations that are hard to push back on, right? And those situations will arise. But it is why laws like the Freelancers in Free Act are important, because it puts more power into the hands of the independent worker to push back against these corporations and companies who are not willing to negotiate in good faith. And with the Freelancers in Free Act, there is that. Aside from the right to a contract and the right to a net pay of 30 days, there are also rules protecting you from retribution and the retaliation from a client who decides not to work with you simply because you wanted to negotiate a contract or have a contract in place. So at the end of the day, it's about evening out the playing field so that freelancers feel armed and feel protected in the case they come into a situation where they're having to negotiate a contract with a client that's not willing to negotiate in good faith.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that just popped into my mind is as business owners that, you have to be your own biggest advocate. And so it is okay to say this does not fit me and what I'm looking, and my needs as a business owner. And again, you have every right to negotiate. And if a company is not willing to do that, that is already a red flag and will already tell you how this project could potentially go. So absolutely just walk away if you're able to. But if not, again, standing up for yourself, being direct, being bold, because at the end of the day, this project affects you heavily, right? And I always tell myself, if this literally disrupts my peace, I won't do it. If I have any inclination, because again, like it's already a lot being an independent business owner. And so if somebody's wanting to shortchange you or not see your worth or, take advantage of you, I have every right to stand up for myself and say no. So I hope if you're a business owner, like you don't have to take exactly what's offered to you right away. You have every right to negotiate. You have every right to say, no, I think this X, Y, Z. And so I love that you just shared that just to give us at least some tools that we could use to better advocate for ourselves in that process. And so another question I wanted to ask as the Freelance Isn't Free Act is, as you guys are working hard to get this distributed into other states, what other things could we do? Like, for example, if it's not in Illinois yet or in other states, as you mentioned, what can business owners also do in that meantime? What other ways can we protect ourselves?
Well, it's everything we spoke about earlier, right? It's just making sure you have that contract in place, making sure you're advocating for yourself and ensuring that you have a net pay that you can live with. But you should be reaching out to your local legislator and educating them on this law that exists in other parts of the country, so that they can play a role in ensuring that your local municipality or your local state government has a freelance and free in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Raphael, I have loved this conversation. I think it was so many great, impactful tools that you have shared. And I hope if you're listening that you will join the Freelancers Union, because again, like they have the resources that you need to be successful as a business owner. And so a question that we love to close out each episode with is, what do you think is the biggest differentiator between the businesses that succeed and the ones that fail?
It's a tough question. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to how resilient you are, and how resourceful you are as an individual. I hear from freelancers in all levels of their career, and there are those that struggle finding one client, and there are those that are swimming in clients. I think that the best thing you can do is just keep a positive mindset, put your best foot forward, right? Make sure you have a strong portfolio. Make sure that when a client Googles your name, that they're able to find a website that shows all of the amazing projects you have done. I hear from a lot of folks on different points of their career about how either they're struggling to find one client, or whether they're swimming or others who are just swimming in clients. And I think that the differentiation that I see is that those who are swimming in clients have the best portfolio and have their best foot forward. And those who are struggling to find that first client, or you can tell that they're still struggling to figure out their own identity and how and where they plan on taking their own freelance career.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Resiliency, right, as a business owner is so key. And mindset, right? You have to truly be your own biggest cheerleader, because at times, it's hard. There's just the journey of entrepreneurship. It has so many ups and downs. And so really being able to cheer yourself on when nobody is there, right? Even when you're doing the mundane tasks, things that you don't necessarily enjoy. And again, putting your best foot forward, talking about your work, being proud of the work that you're doing to be able to attain those clients, I think is just so important. And Raphael, this has been wonderful. And where can people connect with you? Obviously the Freelancers Union, but anything else you want to add where people can connect with you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Rafael Espinal. And also you can just email me directly at respinal@freelancersunion.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Raphael, for this. This has been so helpful. And I hope if you are listening, you feel empowered and equipped as a business owner to be able to just get more involved in legislative advocacy and really be able to help join the fight to protect your business, to protect each other as a community moving forward. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time. That ends our episode of the Independent Business Podcast. Everything we've discussed today can be found at podcast.honeybook.com. Head to our website to access for show notes, relevant links, and all of the resources that you need to level up. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss our future content. Drop us a review and leave our guests some love on social, and thank you again for listening.